Welcome, everybody, Denise, and anyone who will join us online to our Havdalah service. Please join us in worship as we go through our Bible study and celebrate Havdalah as a farewell to Shabbat. Havdalah communion will be at the end of the service before the Amidah prayer. Please, if you are a Jew of Jewish faith or a baptized Gentile, feel free to join us in Havdalah with a kiddush, a cup of juice or wine, and some spices, which will remind us of the perfume of Shabbat, but also the spices that were used on Yeshua's body as he was placed in the tomb. For Theology of the Body Synagogue, today we will learn the meaning of the prophecies of Joel, the prophet Joel, and the coming of the restoration of Israel and the day of the Lord. We will now celebrate Tzedakah. TOB Synagogue, please help us as we grieve with Yarden, the father. Terrible and good news for Israel. Shiri, the mother, Yarden, her husband, freed from Gaza. Ariel, 4, and baby Kfir, 10 months old. On October the 7th, this was a terrified mother, Shri, with her 2 sons, when civilian Arabs from Gaza, not Hamas, came into her kibbutz and kidnapped her and her 2 sons. Shiri and her 2 sons, Ariel and Kfir, kidnapped into Gaza by an Arab whose gray shirt is covered in blood. As you most probably know, two innocent children, Ariel of the age of 4 and Kfir of 9 months, were ripped from their home on October the 7th, forcibly taken into Gaza, not by Hamas militants, but by ordinary Arab Gazan civilians. And what happened in Israel since October the 7th, 2023, is the prophecy of Jacob's trouble in Jeremiah 30, verse 7.
Alas, for that day is a terrible one. There is none like it, a time of distress for Jacob, but he will be saved out of it.
A few weeks ago, the little boy's father, Yarden, was released, and he was hopeful that he would be reunited with his wife and children. On February the 1st, Yarden was released. We see him here with his sister and father in a helicopter being flown back into Israel. That was about 3 weeks ago. And since then, he has been hoping that his wife and boys would also be released. But this week, he found out that all of his family were dead. However, it was 1.5 years ago, in October of 2023, the terrorists savagely murdered the little boys Ariel and Kfir with their bare hands. This past week, Hamas and civilians in Gaza celebrated as they returned the lifeless bodies of his two little boys in tiny coffins. And in a cruel deception, they sent the body of a Gazan woman instead of his wife, Shire. Is Shiri alive? Or has she also been murdered? Only yesterday, Yarden and the world found out that his wife is also dead. This is how Hamas operates, with brutality, with terror, and now with celebrations of the dead, playing music as they return slain Israelis. The horror is unimaginable. The grief is unbearable. But we cannot look away. We stand with Yarden Bibas. We grieve for Ariel, Fear, and Shiri Bibas. We remember them. The only good news was that these following 6 Israeli hostages were released. These were their photos before the kidnapping. I will bless those who bless Israel, from Genesis 12, verse 3. If you wish to celebrate Tzedakah and donate to our congregation, go to Theology of the Body Synagogue and click on Donations. Donate here. Click and follow instruction. If you wish to donate to our house of prayer, scroll down on the same page and click if you wish to donate to our non-financially affiliated house of prayer at the Upper Room Network, and follow instruction. If you wish to donate to the ministry of Bibles for Israel, click on Theology of the Body Synagogues, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and click on Make a Donation to our Bible Ministry, and follow instruction.
Barchi nafshi et Adonai. Adonai Elohai, gadalta me'od, hod v'hadar lavashta. Ote or kasalma, note shamayim kairia. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kidshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lihit atef batzitzit.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed.
The sound of the shofar, often translated as trumpet in English Bibles, reminds us of the admonitions of the prophets and their calls to repentance. From Joel 2, verse 1, blow the trumpet in Zion and sound the alarm in my holy mountain. Let all the inhabitants of the land tremble, for the day of the Lord is coming, for it is at hand. Shalom, Theology of the Body Synagogue. The Hebrew prophet Yoel, or Joel, which means Lord is God, provides some of the most exceptional and explicit details regarding the day of the Lord, a time of judgment in a not too distant future that will be cloaked in darkness with armies that conquer like consuming fire. Many rabbis in Israel believe that this will happen within the next 10 to 15 years. Joel also tells us that in the end times, God will orchestrate the complete redemption of Israel, describing celestial signs involving the sun, moon, and the heavenly bodies. From Joel 2, verses 31 to 32, the sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord. And everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. For on Mount Zion and in Jerusalem, there will be deliverance. Although the prophet Joel tells us about key end time events that likely concern us today, he is a somewhat obscure, mysterious character. While Joel 1:1 tells us that Joel is the son of Pethuel, little else is known about him.
Joel, chapter 1. The word of Jehovah that came to Joel, the son of Pethuel.
The Bible offers no other explanation about the author's life, the time in which he lived, or the king who was reigning in Judah. The prophet's name is given only once in Joel, and he is mentioned nowhere else in the Tanakh, although Amos seems to quote him. As does Isaiah. Joel 3, verse 16.
And Jehovah will roar out of Zion. Out of Jerusalem he will raise his voice, and heaven and earth will rock. But Jehovah will be a refuge for his people, a fortress for the people of Israel.
Amos 1, verse 2.
He said, Jehovah will roar out of Zion, and he will raise his voice out of Jerusalem. The pastures of the shepherds will mourn, and the summit of Carmel will dry up.
Joel 1, verse 15.
Woe because of the day, for the day of Jehovah is near, and it will come like a destruction from the Almighty.
Isaiah 13, verse 6.
Wail, for the day of Jehovah is near. It will come as a destruction from the Almighty.
Because of that, some conclude that Joel prophesied before these other prophets. For this reason, Joel's writing is placed as the second work of the Trei Asar, or the 12, or the minor prophets, a collection of 12 prophetic books in the Tanakh. This group of prophets is considered minor, not because any of them are less important, but because of the size of their works when compared with the major prophets. The order of the books in the Trei Asar is thought to conform to the historical period of each prophet, beginning with Hosea around the mid-8th century BC and concluding with Malachi in the early 5th century BC. When some scholars have estimated Joel's writings as being 8th century before Amos, others estimate late 6th and early 5th century BC, a time at which the temple was standing and the memories of the Babylonian exile were fresh in the minds of the people. We can tell, however, that Joel's prophecies begin in his own day and extend to the day of the Lord, the end-time judgment, as well as Israel's end-time restoration. For that reason, the words of the prophet Joel are entirely relevant for us today. Similar to many of the prophet's writings, Joel emphasizes the importance of Israel's relationship with the Lord and the consequences of their sin. That relationship was codified and drawn up into a legal document called the Mosaic Covenant at Mount Sinai. In that covenant, the Lord promised through Moses that if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be my own possession among all the peoples, for all the earth is mine, and you shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Exodus 19, verses 5 to 6. In this conditional agreement, the people vowed to do their part in maintaining the relationship, saying, all that the Lord has spoken, we will do, from Exodus 19, verse 8. But if they did not do their part, among the many curses for disobedience would be a great plague of locusts. From Deuteronomy 28, verse 38, you shall bring out much seed to the field, but you will gather in little, for the locusts will consume it. Chapter 1 of Joel begins with the consequence of Israel's sin, the invasion of the land by locusts, followed by Joel's instruction to the people to turn from sin and receive God's restorative blessings instead of his wrath.
Joel, chapter 1. The word of Jehovah that came to Joel, the son of Pethuel. Hear this, you elders, and pay attention, all you inhabitants of the land. Has anything like this happened in your days, or in the days of your forefathers? Tell about it to your sons, and let your sons tell about it to their sons, and their sons to the next generation. What was left by the devouring locust, the swarming locust has eaten. And what was left by the swarming locust, the unwinged locust has eaten. And what the unwinged locust has left, the voracious locust has eaten. Wake up, you drunkards, and weep. Wail, all you wine drinkers, because the sweet wine has been taken from your mouths. For a nation has come up into my land, mighty and without number. Its teeth are the teeth of a lion, and its jaws are those of a lion. It has devastated my vine, and turned my fig tree into a stump, stripping them completely bare, and tossing them aside, leaving their twigs white. Wail as a virgin wearing sackcloth does for the bridegroom of her youth. Grain offering and drink offering have ceased from the house of Jehovah. The priests, the ministers of Jehovah, are in mourning. The field has been devastated. The ground mourns. For the grain has been devastated, the new wine has dried up, the oil has failed. Farmers are dismayed. Vine dressers wail because of the wheat and the barley, for the harvest of the field has perished. The vine has dried up. The fig tree has withered. The pomegranate, the palm, and the apple, all the trees of the field have dried up. For joy has turned to shame among the people. Put on sackcloth and mourn, you priests. Wail, you ministers of the altar. Come in and spend the night in sackcloth, you ministers of my God. For grain offering and drink offering have been withheld from the house of your God. Proclaim a fast. Call for a solemn assembly. Gather the elders together with all the inhabitants of the land to the house of Jehovah your God, and cry to Jehovah for help. Woe because of the day, for the day of Jehovah is near, and it will come like a destruction from the Almighty. Has not food been taken from before our very eyes, and rejoicing and joy from the house of our God? The seeds have shriveled under their shovels. Storehouses are desolate. Granaries have been torn down, for the grain has dried up. Even the livestock groan. The herds of cattle wander in confusion, for they have no pasture. And the flocks of sheep bear the punishment. To you, O Jehovah, I will call, for fire has devoured the pastures of the wilderness, and a flame has consumed all the trees of the field. Even the wild beasts long for you, because the streams of water have dried up, and fire has devoured the pastures of the wilderness.
From Joel 1, verse 12. The vine has dried up, the fig tree has withered, the pomegranate, even the date palm, and the apple, every tree in the field has dried up. Joy itself has dried up among the people. In describing the total destruction of the harvest, followed by a severe drought, Joel describes a famine that Israelites had never seen before, one in which even the animals groan in despair. God makes it clear that this plague and famine is his work and no natural disaster. The hopper, the destroyer, and the cutter are my great army, which I sent among you. From Joel 2, verse 25. By chapter 2, Joel uses the imagery of the swarming, hopping, cutting locusts as an object lesson and metaphor to describe another vast destruction coming in the future when great armies have the appearance of horses. They gallop along like cavalry, with a noise like that of chariots. They leap over the mountain tops. From Joel 2, verses 4 to 5. If the prophet Joel saw helicopters in his vision, it is quite possible that he would have likened them to locusts. Without any reference point for helicopters, planes, tanks, or special forces with advanced weaponry and repelling skills, Joel could only describe this future army in relation to the familiar horses, chariots, and locusts. From Joel 2, verses 8 to 9. They burst through the weapons and are not halted. They leap upon the city. They run upon the walls. They climb up into the houses. They enter through the windows like a thief. Because Joel connects this invading army to the day of the Lord, it could have been seen the same battle that the prophet Ezekiel or the seer Asaph saw, or even the last battle at Har-Megiddo in Revelation 16. Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39.
Chapter 38. The word of Jehovah again came to me, saying, Son of man, set your face against Gog of the land of Magog, the head chieftain of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Say, This is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah says. Here I am against you, O Gog, head chieftain of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around and put hooks in your jaws and bring you out with all your army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed in splendor, a vast assembly with large shields and bucklers, all of them wielding swords. Persia, Ethiopia, and Put are with them, all of them with buckler and helmet. Gomer and all its troops, the house of Togarmah from the remotest parts of the north, along with all its troops, many peoples are with you. Be ready, prepare yourselves, you with all your armies that are assembled with you, and you will be their commander. You will be given attention after many days. In the final part of the years, you will invade the land whose people have been restored from the ravages of the sword, collected together out of many peoples onto the mountains of Israel, which had long been lying devastated. The inhabitants of this land were restored from the peoples, and all of them dwell in security. You will come against them like a storm, and you will cover the land like clouds, you and all your troops and many peoples with you. This is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah says. In that day, thoughts will come into your heart, and you will devise an evil plan. You will say, I will invade the land of unprotected settlements. I will come against those living in security, without disturbance, all of them living in settlements unprotected by walls, bars, or gates. It will be to take much spoil and plunder, to attack the devastated places that are now inhabited, and a people regathered from the nations who are accumulating wealth and property, those who are living in the center of the earth. Sheba and Dedan, the merchants of Tarshish, and all its warriors will say to you, Are you invading to get much spoil and plunder? Have you assembled your armies to carry off silver and gold, to take wealth and property, to seize a very great spoil? So prophesy, Son of Man, and say to Gog, This is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah says. On that day when my people Israel are dwelling in security, will you not know it? You will come from your place, from the remotest parts of the north, you and many peoples with you, all of them riding on horses, a great assembly, a vast army. Like clouds covering the land, you will come against my people Israel. In the final part of the days, I will bring you against my land, so that the nations may know me when I sanctify myself through you before their eyes, O Gog. This is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah says. Are you not the same one I spoke about in the former days through my servants the prophets of Israel, who prophesied for many years that you would be brought against them? On that day, the day when Gog invades the land of Israel, declares the sovereign Lord Jehovah, my great rage will flare up. In my zeal, in the fire of my fury, I will speak. And in that day there will be a great earthquake in the land of Israel. Because of me, the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, the wild beasts of the field, all the reptiles that creep on the ground, and all humans on the surface of the earth will tremble, and the mountains will be thrown down, and the cliffs will fall, and every wall will collapse to the ground. I will call for a sword against him on all my mountains, declares the sovereign Lord Jehovah. Every man's sword will be against his own brother. I will bring my judgment against him with pestilence and bloodshed, and I will rain down a torrential downpour and hailstones and fire and sulfur on him, and on his troops, and on the many peoples with him. And I will certainly magnify myself and sanctify myself, and make myself known before the eyes of many nations, and they will have to know that I am Jehovah. Chapter 39. And you, son of man, prophesy against Gog, and tell him, this is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah says. I am against you, Gog, head chieftain of Meshech and Tubal. I will turn you around and lead you and make you come up from the remotest parts of the north and bring you in upon the mountains of Israel. I will knock your bow out of your left hand and make your arrows fall from your right hand. On the mountains of Israel you will fall, you and all your troops and the peoples who will be with you. I will give you as food to all kinds of birds of prey and the wild beasts of the field. You will fall on the open field, for I myself have spoken, declares the sovereign Lord Jehovah. And I will send fire against Magog and against those who are inhabiting the islands in security, and they will have to know that I am Jehovah. I will make my holy name known among my people Israel, and I will not allow my holy name to be profaned any longer. And the nations will have to know that I am Jehovah, the Holy One in Israel. Yes, this is coming, and it will be done, declares the sovereign Lord Jehovah. This is the day I have spoken about. The inhabitants of the cities of Israel will go out and make fires with the weapons, the bucklers and shields, the bows and arrows, the war clubs and lances. And they will use them to light fires for 7 years. They will not need to take wood from the field or gather firewood from the forests, because they will use the weapons to light fires. They will take spoil from those who despoiled them, and plunder from those who had been plundering them, declares the sovereign Lord Jehovah. On that day I will give Gog a burial place there in Israel, in the valley of those who travel east of the sea, and it will block the path of those passing through. That is where they will bury Gog and all his hordes, and they will call it the Valley of Hamon-Gog. The house of Israel will spend 7 months burying them in order to cleanse the land. All the people of the land will work at burying them, and this will bring them fame in the day that I glorify myself, declares the sovereign Lord Jehovah. Men will be assigned to pass through the land constantly and bury the bodies left remaining on the surface of the earth in order to cleanse it. They will continue the search for 7 months. When those who pass through the land see a human bone, They will set up a marker beside it. Then those assigned to do the burying will bury it in the valley of Hamongog. And there will also be a city there named Hamona, and they will cleanse the land. As for you, Son of Man, this is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah says. Say to every sort of bird and to all the wild beasts of the field, gather yourselves together and come. Gather all around my sacrifice that I am preparing for you, a great sacrifice on the mountains of Israel. You will eat flesh and drink blood. You will eat the flesh of mighty ones and drink the blood of the chieftains of the earth, the rams, lambs, goats, and bulls, all the fattened animals of Bashan. You will gorge yourselves on fat and drink blood until you are drunk from the sacrifice that I prepare for you. At my table you will be filled up with horses and charioteers, mighty ones and all sorts of warriors, declares the sovereign Lord Jehovah. I will display my glory among the nations, and all the nations will see the judgment that I have executed, and the power that I have demonstrated among them. From that day on, the house of Israel will have to know that I am Jehovah their God. And the nations will have to know that the house of Israel went into exile because of their own error, because they were unfaithful to me. So I hid my face from them and handed them over to their enemies, and they all fell by the sword. I dealt with them according to their uncleanness and their transgressions, and I hid my face from them. Therefore, this is what the sovereign Lord Jehovah says. I will restore the captives of Jacob, and have mercy on the whole house of Israel, and I will zealously defend my holy name. After they have been humiliated for all their unfaithfulness toward me, they will dwell securely on their land, with no one to make them afraid. When I bring them back from the peoples and collect them together from the lands of their enemies, I will also sanctify myself among them before the eyes of many nations. They will have to know that I am Jehovah their God when I send them into exile among the nations and then gather them back to their land, not leaving any of them behind. I will not hide my face from them any longer, for I will pour out my spirit on the house of Israel, declares the sovereign Lord Jehovah.
Psalm 38. Psalm 83.
Psalm 83. A song, a melody of Asaph. O God, do not be silent. Do not keep quiet or still, O Divine One. For look, your enemies are in an uproar. Those who hate you act arrogantly. With cunning they secretly plot against your people. They conspire against your treasured ones. They say, "Come, let us annihilate them as a nation, so that the name of Israel may be remembered no more." They devise a unified strategy. They have made an alliance against you. The tents of Edom and the Ishmaelites, Moab and the Hagrites, Gebal and Ammon and Amalek, Philistia, together with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assyria too has joined them. They give support to the sons of Lot. Do to them as you did to Midian, as you did to Sisera and Jabin at the stream of Kishon. They were annihilated at Endor. They became manure for the ground. Make their nobles like Oreb and Zeeb. and their princes like Zebah and Zalmunna. For they said, "Let us take possession of the land where God dwells." O my God, make them like a whirling thistle, like stubble blown about by the wind, like a fire that burns up the forest, like a flame that scorches the mountains. So may you pursue them with your tempest, and terrify them with your windstorm. Cover their faces with dishonor, so that they may search for your name, O Jehovah. May they be put to shame and be terrified forever. May they be disgraced and perish. May people know that you, whose name is Jehovah, you alone are the Most High over all the earth.
Revelation 16.
Chapter 16. And I heard a loud voice out of the sanctuary say to the 7 angels, "Go, and pour out the 7 bowls of the anger of God on the earth." The first one went off and poured out his bowl on the earth. And a hurtful and malignant ulcer afflicted the people who had the mark of the wild beast, and who were worshipping its image. The second one poured out his bowl into the sea, and it became blood, like that of a dead man, and every living creature died, yes, the things in the sea. The third one poured out his bowl into the rivers and the springs of water, and they became blood. I heard the angel over the waters say, "You, the one who is and who was, the loyal one, are righteous, for you have issued these judgments, because they poured out the blood of holy ones and of prophets, and you have given them blood to drink. They deserve it." And I heard the altar say, "Yes, Jehovah God, the Almighty, true and righteous are your judgments." The fourth one poured out his bowl on the sun, and to the sun it was granted to scorch the people with fire. And the people were scorched by the great heat, but they blasphemed the name of God, who has the authority over these plagues, and they did not repent and give glory to him. The fifth one poured out his bowl on the throne of the wild beast, and its kingdom became darkened, and they began to gnaw their tongues because of their pain. But they blasphemed the God of heaven because of their pains and their ulcers, and they did not repent of their works. The sixth one poured out his bowl on the great river Euphrates, and its water was dried up, to prepare the way for the kings from the rising of the sun. And I saw 3 unclean, inspired expressions that looked like frogs come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the wild beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. They are, in fact, expressions inspired by demons, and they perform signs, and they go out to the kings of the entire inhabited earth, to gather them together to the war of the great day of God the Almighty. Look, I am coming as a thief. Happy is the one who stays awake and keeps his outer garments, so that he may not walk naked, and people look upon his shamefulness. And they gathered them together to the place that is called in Hebrew Armageddon. The seventh one poured out his bowl on the air. At this a loud voice came out of the sanctuary from the throne, saying, "It has come to pass." And there were flashes of lightning, and voices and thunders, and there was a great earthquake, unlike any that had occurred since men came to be on the earth. So extensive and so great was the earthquake. The great city split into 3 parts, and the cities of the nations fell. And Babylon the Great was remembered before God, to give her the cup of the wine of the fury of his wrath. Also, every island fled, and mountains were not found. Then great hailstones, each about the weight of a talent, fell from heaven on the people, and the people blasphemed God because of the plague of hail, for the plague was unusually great.
Yet, like other true prophets of God, who bring news of approaching doom, Joel also provides hope for the people by showing them the only way to receive physical and spiritual restoration, the Lord's way. Whenever we experience God's judgment or discipline, we are in danger of falling away from our faith in Him, from believing that He loves us and that He is even real. Moreover, when non-believers see calamity come upon us, they too wonder if the God we have been sharing about is a good God or even real. Joel understands this reality and is zealous to protect God's integrity. He gathers the priests, elders, and all the people together and focuses them on the one they entered into the Mosaic covenant with. From Joel 1, verse 14, proclaim a holy fast call an assembly, gather the elders, all who dwell in the land, to the house of the Lord your God, and cry out to the Lord. The Lord himself also pleads with his people to return to him in sincere repentance. From Joel 2, verse 12, yet even now, declares the Lord, return to me with all your heart, with fasting, with weeping, and with mourning, and rend your hearts and not your garments. Whatever the cause of our calamities, God is always there to see us through. When we cry out to him, turn from our wicked ways, and return to him, we find that he is gracious and merciful, slow to anger, and abounding in steadfast love, and he relents over disaster. From Joel 2, verse 13. We cannot see God fully work out his mercies, however, unless we renew our relationship with him by giving him permission to enter our lives as we seek to do his will. In Joel's day, the people simply had to turn from sin and walk in the covenant given through Moses. In addition to the people turning back to the promises they made to God in that covenant, Joel charges intercessors to act on behalf of the people. Joel tells them to remind the Lord of his covenant promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, in which he would make their descendants great in number, give them a land, and make them a blessing to the world. Unlike the Mosaic covenant, the covenant God made with Abraham was unconditional. God alone cut the covenant with Abraham when Abraham slept. There is nothing the people of Israel have to do for God to keep this promise. Genesis 15, verses 12 to 21.
When the sun was about to set, a deep sleep fell upon Abram, and a great and frightening darkness descended on him. Then he said to Abram, "Know for certain that your offspring will be foreigners in a land not theirs, and that the people there will enslave them and afflict them for 400 years. But I will judge the nation they will serve, and after that they will go out with many goods. As for you, you will go to your forefathers in peace. You will be buried at a good old age. But they will return here in the 4th generation, because the era of the Amorites has not yet reached its full measure. When the sun had set, and it had become very dark, a smoking furnace appeared, and a fiery torch passed between the pieces. On that day Jehovah made with Abram a covenant, saying, To your offspring I will give this land, from the river of Egypt to the great river, the river Euphrates, the land of the Kenites, the Kenizzites, the Cadmonites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Rephaim, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Girgashites, and the Jebusites.
From Joel 2, verse 17, between the vestibule and the altar, let the priests, the ministers of the Lord, weep and say, Spare your people, O Lord, and make not your heritage a reproach, a byword among the nations. Why should they say among the peoples, Where is their God? If the Israelites had perished during this time of judgment against them, God would have broken the covenant he made with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. As a result, his heritage, the children of Israel, that he called to be set apart as holy, would have been shamed and his name mocked by the nations. This is the same argument that Moses made to God when he interceded for the disobedient Israelites in the wilderness. He basically told God, if you kill your people, no matter how disobedient they are, the Egyptians will think you planned to kill them all along. They will never learn of your holiness or see your great promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob come to pass. Exodus 32, verses 9 to 13.
Jehovah went on to say to Moses, I have seen that this is an obstinate people. So now let me be, and I will exterminate them in my burning anger, and let me make a great nation from you instead. Then Moses appealed to Jehovah his God, and said, Why, O Jehovah, should you turn your burning anger against your people, after bringing them out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Why should the Egyptians say, He had evil intentions when he led them out. He wanted to kill them in the mountains and exterminate them from the surface of the earth? Turn from your burning anger and reconsider your decision to bring this calamity on your people. Remember your servants, Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, to whom you swore by yourself and said, I will multiply your offspring like the stars of the heavens, and I will give all this land that I have designated to your offspring, so that they may take it as a permanent possession.
After this intercessory plea by Moses, the Lord relented and did not bring on his people the disaster he had threatened. From Exodus 32, verse 14. Chapter 2 of Joel sees the period of the end times when the Jewish people turn their hearts in sincere repentance and cry out to him for their salvation. As a result, the Lord is jealous for his land and takes pity on his people, from Joel 2, verse 18. Believers in Yeshua are also called to be God's holy nation, a royal priesthood, and as his priests, we each have the responsibility to intercede for the spiritual and physical salvation of the Jewish people. We can intercede for their protection against the spirit of anti-Semitism that tries to kill every Jew on earth by reminding God of his promises to them as they pray. Lord, make your name great among the nations. Let them see your promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob come to pass, as well as the great prophecies of your word throughout the Bible. Lift the veil off the hearts of Israel through faith in Yeshua, HaMashiach. Reveal Messiah to your people through the writings of Joel and other prophets. Continue to restore the fortunes of the land and bring prosperity and supernatural protection of Israel. The spirit of anti-Semitism is so veiled and so aggressive that in 1948, when God miraculously rebirthed the nation of Israel and the ancient Hebrew language, 5 neighboring nations immediately invaded her, which seems to be at least a partial fulfillment of Joel. But this vile hatred is still ongoing. These same nations and more are still trying to destroy the land and the people that God has promised to protect forever. From Joel 3:17 to 29 to 21. Then you will know that I, the Lord your God, dwell in Zion, my holy hill. Jerusalem will be holy. Never again will foreigners invade her. But Egypt will be desolate, Edom a desert waste, because of violence done to the people of Judah, in whose land they shed innocent blood. Judah will be inhabited forever, and Jerusalem through all generations. Shall I leave their innocent blood unrevenged? No, I will not. The Lord dwells in Zion. Because of the promise-keeping God, we can hold him to these promises in our prayers for the Jewish people, as well as for ourselves and those to whom we intercede. From Joel 1, verse 15. Oh, the day, for near is the day of the Lord. Like distraction from the Almighty, it is coming. Like every good prophet, Joel had a greater application of the very real curse of locusts. Joel wanted to prepare the people of Israel and all of us for the coming day of the Lord. Judgment and distraction will lead up to it. Joel 2, verses 12 to 17.
Rip apart your hearts, and not your garments, and return to Jehovah your God. For he is compassionate and merciful, slow to anger, and abundant in loyal love, and he will reconsider the calamity. Who knows whether he will turn back and reconsider, and leave behind a blessing, a grain offering and a drink offering for Jehovah your God? Blow a horn in Zion, proclaim a fast, call for a solemn assembly. Gather the people, sanctify the congregation. Collect the old men, gather the children and nursing infants. Let the bridegroom go out from his inner chamber, and the bride from her bridal chamber. Between the porch and the altar, let the priests, the ministers of Jehovah, weep and say, Do feel pity, O Jehovah, for your people. Do not make your inheritance an object of scorn, letting the nations rule over them. Why should the people say, Where is their God?
Joel describes it as being unlike any day from the past or the future, a day of darkness and gloom, a day of thick clouds. Joel 2, verse 2. Joel sees this day, which is far into the future, to a very day and beyond, to a time of judgment for the nations. Nations responsible for divvying up his land. Joel 3, verses 2 to 3. Because they scattered them from among the nations, they divided up my land. For my people, they cast lots, trading a young boy for the price of a prostitute, exchanging a young girl for the wine they drank. Joel 3, verses 2 to 3. From Isaiah 62, verses 6 to 7. I have posted watchmen on your walls, Jerusalem. They will never be silent day or night. You who call on the Lord, give yourselves no rest, and give him no rest till he establishes Jerusalem and makes her the praise of the earth. The Lord is still jealous for his land, and he still keeps his covenants. Therefore, he will keep his promise to avenge Israel and judge the nations for how they treated his land and his people. In the past 70 years, the world has seen the fortunes of Judah and Jerusalem being restored. The pastures in the wilderness are becoming green. To trees, the trees are bearing the fruits. The fig tree and the vine yield their riches. Before the great day of judgment comes, there are more signs to be fulfilled. After God restores what the locusts have eaten and does wonders to the people, so they will never again be shamed, God says he will perform specific signs. The first is the great sign of prophecy. Joel 2:26-29. I will pour out my spirit on all people. Your sons and daughters will prophesy. Your old men will dream dreams. Your young men will see visions. Even on my servants, both men and women, I will pour out my spirit in those days. Peter quoted these verses in Joel to explain what was happening on Shavuot, on Shavuot, when the Ruach HaKodesh fell on the early Jewish believers in Yeshua. Causing them to speak boldly, even in other languages, about the risen Messiah. Acts 2, verses 16-17.
On the contrary, this is what was said through the prophet Joel. And in the last days, God says, I will pour out some of my spirit on every sort of flesh, and your sons and your daughters will prophesy, and your young men will see visions, and your old men will dream dreams.
And were distributed.
The same Ruach is available to all who believe in Yeshua and ask for his Spirit to fill them. For several hundred years, the Ruach seemed to be missing from many believers and congregations, but great revivals have occurred in the last 300 years. Two of the most recent being the Pentecostal movement that began in 1906 with Azusa Street Revival, and the Jesus movement of the 1970s. For 2,000 years, these signs have been visible in varying degrees, but as we come closer to the very last days, we will see a greater outpouring of the Ruach around the world, especially among individual believers of Yeshua. Who are even now experiencing God's manifest glory in tangible ways. Joel These ways may include prophecy, visions, and dreams. In addition to the sign of prophecy, from Joel 2, verse 31, the sun will darken, The moon turned blood red before the day of the Lord arrives, the great and terrible day. In his third and last chapter, Joel mentions a bloody moon in connection with day of the Lord. In his third and last chapter, Joel mentions a blood moon in connection with the day of the Lord. Two of these blood moons occurred in 2014 on Passover and Sukkot. The next two occurred once again on Passover and Sukkot in 2015, making a total of 4 blood moons eclipsed moons that reflect the earth's light, while the 4 blood moons, known as blood moon tetrad, may not be linked to that great judgment, that Joel prophesies. History has recorded tetrads shortly before and after momentous events in the history of the Jewish people. For example, in 1493 to 1494, their occurrence was linked with the expulsion of the Jews from Spain, which occurred in 1492. A blood moon tetrad occurred again in 1949 to 1950, just months after David Ben-Gurion issued the Declaration of Independence for the newborn state of Israel, giving the Jewish people their ancient homeland and capital of Jerusalem after a 2,000-year exile. Their appearance during the years 1967 to 1968 has been linked with Israel's regaining the old city of Jerusalem and the Temple Mount. In the midst of the last tetrad, 2014 to 2015, war broke out between Gaza and Israel, resulting in a worldwide movement to cite Israel for war crimes and boycott Israeli products. Terrorism heightened on the streets of Jerusalem. ISIS moved into Israel's backyard at the Sinai, as well as in Syria, followed by Russia and Iran, who remain in Syria to this day. Most importantly, perhaps, on September the 25th, 2015, 2 days before the last of the blood moons, Pope Francis addressed the United Nations and endorsed a major step toward a new world order. The adoption of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development at the World Summit, which opens today, is an important sign of hope, he told the General Assembly. This United Nations agenda plans to bring worldwide peace, prosperity, and more to the world by 2030, 3 years before another blood moon tetrad. While these goals prepared by the United Nations appear noble, there is a one world agenda, and the UN and the WHO organization are vying for control of it. These are the United Nations 17 goals set on a fast track for achievement by 2030. Now, 11 years since the blood moons prophetically appeared in the sky on biblical Jewish holidays, we now have a high inflation, Russia's war with Ukraine, and the LGBT liberal push to nominalize gay marriage, as well as confusing children to choose what gender they want to be, enticing them to take hormones and have surgeries, turning them into looking like the opposite sex. All of this has brought fear, chaos, and confusion throughout the world. In the next few years, we will see the prophecy of Ezekiel 38 and 39, Islamic war against Israel, fulfilled. And then the final world war, when God gathers the nations to fight against Jerusalem, in Zechariah chapters 12 to 14. At the time Yeshua returns and establishes his kingdom on earth, as everyone will know the one true God.
Chapter 12. A pronouncement. The word of Jehovah concerning Israel, declares Jehovah, the one who stretched out the heavens, who laid the foundation of the earth, and who formed the spirit of man within him. Here I am making Jerusalem a cup that causes all the surrounding peoples to stagger, and there will be a siege against Judah as well as against Jerusalem. In that day I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone to all the peoples. All those who lift it are sure to be severely injured, and all the nations of the earth will be gathered against her. In that day, declares Jehovah, I will strike every horse with panic and its rider with madness. I will keep my eyes on the house of Judah, but I will strike every horse of the peoples with blindness. And the sheiks of Judah will say in their heart, the inhabitants of Jerusalem are a strength to me by means of Jehovah of armies their God. In that day I will make the sheiks of Judah like a fiery pot among wood, and like a fiery torch in a row of cut grain, and they will consume all the surrounding peoples on the right and on the left, and Jerusalem will again be inhabited in her place in Jerusalem. And Jehovah will save the tents of Judah first, so that the beauty of the house of David and the beauty of the inhabitants of Jerusalem may not be too great over Judah. In that day Jehovah will be a defense around the inhabitants of Jerusalem. In that day the one who stumbles among them will be like David, and the house of David like God, like Jehovah's angel who goes before them. And in that day I will be certain to annihilate all the nations that come against Jerusalem. I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of favor and supplication, and they will look to the one whom they pierced, and they will wail over him as they would wail over an only son, and they will grieve bitterly over him as they would grieve over a firstborn son. In that day the wailing in Jerusalem will be great, like the wailing at Hadad Rimmon in the plain of Megiddo. And the land will wail, each family by itself, the family of David's house by itself, and their women by themselves, the family of Nathan's house by itself, and their women by themselves, the family of Levi's house by itself, and their women by themselves. The family of the Shimeites by itself, and their women by themselves. And all the families that are left remaining, each family by itself, and their women by themselves. Chapter 13. In that day, a well will be opened to the house of David and to the inhabitants of Jerusalem for cleansing sin and impurity. In that day, declares Jehovah of armies, I will erase the names of the idols from the land, and they will no longer be remembered. And I will rid the land of the prophets and the spirit of uncleanness. And if a man should prophesy again, his father and his mother who caused his birth will say to him, You will not live, because you have spoken lies in the name of Jehovah. And his father and his mother who caused his birth will pierce him through because of his prophesying. In that day, each of the prophets will be ashamed of his vision when he prophesies, and they will not wear an official garment of hair in order to deceive. And he will say, I am no prophet. I am a man cultivating the soil, because a man bought me when I was young. And if someone asks him, What are these wounds between your shoulders? He will answer, Wounds I received in the house of my friends. O sword, awake against my shepherd, against the man who is my companion, declares Jehovah of armies. Strike the shepherd, and let the flock be scattered. And I will turn my hand against those who are insignificant. And in all the land, declares Jehovah, 2 parts in it will be cut off and perish, and the 3rd part will be left remaining in it. And I will bring the 3rd part through the fire, and I will refine them as silver is refined, and test them as gold is tested. They will call on my name, and I will answer them. I will say, They are my people, and they will say, Jehovah is our God. Chapter 14. Look, the day is coming, a day belonging to Jehovah, when the spoil from you will be divided in your midst. I will gather all the nations against Jerusalem for the war, and the city will be captured, and the houses plundered, and the women raped. And half of the city will go into exile, but the remaining ones of the people will not be cut off from the city. Jehovah will go out and war against those nations, as when he fights in the day of a battle. In that day his feet will stand on the Mount of Olives, which faces Jerusalem on the east. And the Mount of Olives will be split in half from east to west, forming a very great valley. And half of the mountain will move to the north, and half of it to the south. You will flee to the valley of my mountains, for the valley of the mountains will extend all the way to Azal. You will have to flee, just as you fled because of the earthquake in the days of King Uzziah of Judah. And Jehovah my God will come, and all the holy ones will be with him. In that day there will be no precious light. Things will be congealed, and it will become one day that is known as belonging to Jehovah. It will not be day, nor will it be night, and at evening time there will be light. In that day living waters will flow out from Jerusalem, half of them toward the eastern sea, and half of them toward the western sea. It will happen in summer and in winter. And Jehovah will be king over all the earth. In that day Jehovah will be one, and his name one. The whole land will become like the Arabah, from Geba to Rimmon, south of Jerusalem. And she will rise and be inhabited in her place, from the gate of Benjamin all the way to the site of the first gate, all the way to the corner gate, and from the tower of Hananel all the way to the wine presses of the king. And people will inhabit her, and there will never again be a curse of destruction, and Jerusalem will be inhabited in security. And this is the scourge with which Jehovah will scourge all the peoples who wage war against Jerusalem. Their flesh will rot away while they stand on their feet. Their eyes will rot away in their sockets, and their tongues will rot away in their mouths. In that day confusion from Jehovah will be widespread among them, and each one will grab hold of the hand of his companion, and his hand will come against the hand of his companion. Judah will also be involved in the war at Jerusalem, and the wealth of all the surrounding nations will be gathered, gold and silver and garments in vast quantity. And a scourge like that scourge will also come against the horses, the mules, the camels, the donkeys, and all the livestock that are in those camps. Everyone who is left remaining out of all the nations that come against Jerusalem will go up from year to year to bow down to the King, Jehovah of armies, and to celebrate the festival of booths. But if anyone among the families of the earth does not go up to Jerusalem to bow down to the King, Jehovah of armies, no rain will fall on them. And if the family of Egypt does not come up and does not come in, they will have no rain. Instead, they will have the scourge with which Jehovah scourges the nations that do not come up to celebrate the festival of booths. This will be the punishment for the sin of Egypt and the sin of all the nations that do not come up to celebrate the festival of booths. In that day, the words, "Holiness belongs to Jehovah," will be written on the bells of the horses. And the cooking pots in the house of Jehovah will be like the bowls before the altar. And every cooking pot in Jerusalem and in Judah will be holy, and will belong to Jehovah of armies. And all those who are sacrificing will come in and use some of them for boiling. In that day, there will no longer be a Canaanite in the house of Jehovah of armies.
So, theology of the body synagogue, as we read and hear the prophecies of Joel, written 2,500 to 2,800 years ago, we can easily see the relevance for today when so many of the signs that he predicted are coming to pass. The day of the Lord, which Joel speaks about, is not to be feared by those who bless Israel, but it should be feared by the nations who turn against his people and divide up his land. They will be judged in the valley of Jehoshaphat. Well, Joel reminds us of God's great promises to avenge Israel's enemies, restore her land, and prosper his people. He reminds us of another important truth. From Joel 2:23, everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. we can be part of the great end time move of God upon the Jewish people that the prophet Joel prophesied. So let's together share the truth of the good news that Yeshua is the long-awaited Jewish Messiah through our testimony and the Hebrew prophecies. From Isaiah 40, verse 9. You who bring good news to Zion, go up on a high mountain. You who bring good news to Jerusalem, lift up your voice with a shout. Lift it up. Do not be afraid. Say to the towns of Judah, here is your God. Isaiah 40, verses 1 to 2. Comfort, comfort my people, says your God. Speak tenderly to Jerusalem and proclaim to her that her hard service has been completed, that her sin has been paid for, that she has received from the Lord's hand double for her sins, for all her sins.
Can a nation be born at once? Thus says Adonai, who gives the sun for light by day, and the fixed order of the moon and the stars for light by the night, who stirs up the sea so that its waves roar. Adonai Tzevaot, the Lord of hosts is his name. If this fixed order departs from before me, declares Adonai, then the offspring of Israel also will cease from being a nation before me forever. Arise, Israel, and shine. Arise, arise, and shine. For your light has come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon you. From ashes to glory, God changed your story's life. The nations will join you to to glory. God changed your story, Israel. The nations will join you to worship Adonai. The children of Rachel shall return. No one can stop God's rescue plan. He will bring them back.
From Colossians 3, verse 11, here there is no Gentile or Jew, circumcised or uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, or free. The Messiah is all and is in all. Today, the family of believers in Yeshua is characterized by divisions between denominations and movements. Not so within the assembly of the first believers in Yeshua in Israel. The book of Acts reveals that the original believers were in total unity as they worshipped at the Jewish temple, praying together and sharing in common what they had. Acts 1:14.
With one purpose, all of these were persisting in prayer, together with some women, and Mary, the mother of Jesus, and with his brothers.
Acts 2, verse 44.
All those who became believers were together and had everything in common, and they were selling their possessions and property.
From Acts 2, verse 46. And continuing daily with one accord in the temple, and breaking bread from house to house, they ate their meat with gladness and singleness of heart. As well, the expression of their faith was entirely in keeping with Judaism, for it was not the intention of the Messiah to start another religion. But we see from the Brit Hadashah that disagreements first arose between Jewish believers and the Gentile believer and the Gentiles when they began coming to faith. Some of the first Jewish believers felt that the Gentile believers should submit to the full ritual conversion process and become fully Jewish. Of course, this would mean that they would have to take a vow to keep only Torah's commandments, but also the traditional law, which is much more extensive than the 613 commandments found in the Torah. The group believed that people could not be saved without undergoing circumcision. In a council meeting with the apostles and elders in Jerusalem to decide how to proceed in this matter, Paul and Barnabas described how God was among the Gentiles without any conversion rituals. Peter also stood up and presented his position, saying that God was pouring out his Ruach HaKodesh on them, just as he was on Jewish believers. James, who led the meeting, then stood up and expounded upon the prophetic significance of the Gentiles coming to faith in Yeshua, linking it to the end-time restoration of Israel and the appearance of Gentiles who are called by his name. Acts 15, verses 16 to 18.
After these things I will return and raise up again the tent of David that is fallen down. I will rebuild its ruins and restore it, so that the men who remain may earnestly seek Jehovah together with people of all the nations, people who are called by my name, says Jehovah, who is doing these things, known from of old.
Amos 9, verses 11 to 14.
For look, I am giving the command, and I will shake the house of Israel among all the nations, just as one shakes a sieve, and not a pebble falls to the ground.
In light of the fact that the law of Moses could be heard every Sabbath in the synagogue of every city, James then suggested that a letter be sent to Galilee to Gentile believers, that they should observe the following. From Acts 15, verse 29, you are to abstain from food strangled to idols, from blood, from the meat of strangled animals, and from sexual immorality. While the Bible says the Torah's commandments are not difficult to keep, the early followers of Yeshua concluded that at the meeting that the extra traditional laws are too burdensome for Gentile believers, and the conversion process to Judaism is unnecessary to salvation. Deuteronomy 30, verses 11 to 14.
Now this commandment that I am commanding you today is not too difficult for you, nor is it beyond your reach. Now this commandment that I am commanding you today is not too difficult for you, nor is it beyond your reach. It is not in the heavens, so that you have to say, "Who will ascend to the heavens and get it for us, so that we may hear it and observe it?" Nor is it on the other side of the sea, so that you have to say, "Who will cross over to the other side of the sea and get it for us, so that we may hear it and observe it?" For the word is very near you, in your own mouth and in your
Romans 10, verse 8.
For with the heart one exercises faith for righteousness, but with the mouth one makes public declaration for salvation.